So first of all, Tashi Dele to all of my Dharma friends. I hope that you are well and I hope that you are happy. So today I will share with you just in this short time a particular shloka, a particular verse of something very precious. So then please listen and study and practice this verse with a joyful mind. And in terms of what we will be discussing today, this is something that is very much related to our happiness. In fact, it is addressing what is the perhaps principal cause of our happiness. So very important. And in terms of the verse that we will be sharing today, this verse was composed by a student of Āryadeva, and this student, his name was Āryadeva. And Āryadeva was said to be somebody who was able to discern correctly the Buddha's ultimate view. So there's many stories of Āryadeva, for example, many stories about him debating with holders of different views and so forth, very entertaining stories, but we won't be sharing those today. That's not our topic. So in particular, Geshe will be sharing today from a scripture known as a root scripture known as the 400 verses. And this is a scripture that takes the form of 400 verses or shlokas. So Geshe has shared the verse with you in Tibetan. I will share the verse with you in English. As the tactile sense pervades the body, confusion is present in all places. By overcoming confusion, one also overcomes all the afflictive emotions.
This one, lila leon Geshe to say and pick it and
So in terms of how this verse is split up, the first line, as the tactile sense pervades the body, this is giving an example or an analogy. And the second line of the verse, confusion is present in all places, is giving the real meaning of that analogy. So here when we speak of the, it says pervades the body, but it's actually the body consciousness. If we give a literal translation, Geshe is just explaining that the body consciousness, is the sort of home or the abode of all of the sense powers.
This one?
Just in the way that space is sort of the home to all phenomena or all objects. So this is explaining that just as the body is the house of all of the sense powers, in the same way confusion is present in all places, and here confusion is indicating ignorance.
This one?
And we need to understand that in terms of this confusion or this ignorance, this is something that pervades all of the mistaken or unwholesome minds, like attachment, jealousy, anger, pride, and so forth.
짜와 그게 잡아다고 되지. 아니 내줘도 그런 맞아 차도 이렇게 요번다고 지는 되는 거로 쓰면 되는 것도.
So we can understand that this confusion or ignorance is like the king, and then its servants are the associated afflictive minds like anger, attachment, jealousy, and so forth. And these are what sort of confuse us or deceive us within samsara.
단내에서 때 무엇이 바시는 거로서 내가 가르쳤으나 단내에서 때 하고 지내라 물리요 뭐 내가요 뭐 이거 다 가르며 바시고 그랬으나 너무 강이 그자와 마리바 또미 마리바 세야데 아니 좀봐 내가시도.
So recognizing this particular situation, right, to do with this confusion or ignorance, and also understanding that we have this human rebirth with this human brain and intelligence, then what do we need to do? We need to direct our attention to getting rid, to overcoming this confusion or this ignorance. We must overcome it.
어떻게 미가를 가운데 와 디시는 너무 토제 좀 너무 요소 줘 봐. 또면 좀 먼저 스토미도 지조토소나 강가 조토.
So that is what is meant by overcoming confusion. One also overcomes all the afflictive emotions. Not very difficult to understand here. If we are able to get rid of that confusion or the ignorance, we will also be able to eliminate all of the associated afflicted minds.
어떤 거로서 이나요 다 이야 거로서 강가로 이제 강가 지발에 대시 벌써 줘 봐. 누가 땡데메 비다와 다 드리 벌써 줘 봐. 이네 그거요나. 다 드리게 내서 드리 바시네라. 어떤 녀모 아니 또미 말이 바래 내가 노도 간지스래. 아니 얘라 내자도 컨트롤해서 맞다는 내가 노도 간지스래. 초니는 거로 내가 지금 말했어.
So all of us who are seeking these aims of being able to completely clear away suffering, and all of us who are striving to achieve that happiness that is beyond suffering, well, what do we need to do then? How do we deal with and achieve these aims? We need to, on the one hand, completely eliminate this confusion or ignorance, which is the root, at the same time as addressing these branch afflictions, attachment, jealousy, anger, and so forth, and diminishing them as much as possible. That is our task.
다 나로서 나도 나다와 이네 다 내도 비다리나. 다 이니 menjele가 이게 돈이 보게. 뭐 내가 공도 걸어서 내가 가르는 디가 손을 지도. 자와 다저 말이 별 내가로도 간지스는데 내가 이게 돈이 마셔나 오늘 야 리라고 싶어요.
So Geshe was saying that for most of us, as beginners, right, and he includes himself in this as beginners, then what we need to do is we need to take a two-pronged approach. So at the one hand, understanding how the antidotes diminish attachment, anger, jealousy, and so forth, right, and trying to diminish those as much as possible, while at the same time trying to get rid of the root, trying to eliminate the root of the afflictions, which is the ignorance grasping at the self.
배나 다체 도보 뚱반이는 그게 가로 체 도보 고아요 봐. 네바 요바. 저 첨보 요바 이나?
Younger son?
뚱반이라. 그래 가고신 말했더니 야 뚱반이라 저 첨보 요기 할래비들 고마때 뭐 요기나?
Yeah.
근데 인지 매년 대서 그 년보 훈조그 년보 어수시라자 그요 말에 저 때문에 말이 바코로 아니 년보때 저 비제 돈은 거 와이나? 이제도 내가 롬배만도 도요.
So Geshe was just explaining that in terms of the practitioner who is deeply familiar with emptiness, who has a feeling and experience of emptiness, who is habituated to emptiness, then they don't so much need to spend time addressing the other afflictions like attachment, anger, jealousy, and so forth. Because due to their experience, by directly countering this ignorance, diminishing those ignorance, as a natural consequence of that, they will also be diminishing the afflictions associated with it, anger, jealousy, so forth.
This one, all that 대우더니 다른 요 대래 변한 대처가 뭐 군족이 뭐 대처가 뭐 아니 뭐도 바꿔야라 소바. 군족이 뭐 때문에 쇼바도 아니 제발라 소바 니지고야라 소바 다 뭐뭐지고 초래스.
And so when we speak about the antidotes to these branch afflictions, if we think about attachment, for example, we might think about ugliness or unappealingness as the antidote to that. And if we think about anger, we can mention several different antidotes. For example, love, compassion, and patience can all be antidotes of that. But we need to understand that in terms of the particular antidotes to attachment, they can only diminish the particular delusion of attachment. In terms of the antidotes to anger, they only can specifically address that delusion or that affliction of anger. Those antidotes cannot help us deal with this problem of the ignorance grasping at the self. And in terms of this confusion or this ignorance grasping at the self, what this does is it is something that sees all things as existing independently, as existing inherently or from their own side. So, in a relaxed way, then, we understand that while these objects, phenomena, they may appear as self-existent, they may appear as inherently existent, but we have 100% confidence that the holy beings, they say that they are not existing from their own side independently at all. If we're able to do that, so what we need to understand is if these objects are really truly inherently existent, if these objects really exist from their own side, then this object, this phenomena that we see through the lens of our attachment, that we see through the lens of our anger, there should be some pinpointable essence to that object. For example, somewhere within the 5 aggregates: feeling, form, feeling, compositional factors, discrimination, and consciousness. So for example, if we take the example of a beautiful shrub that is round in nature, if we are far away from it, it might have the appearance of a beautiful round ball or sphere. But as we walk or drive closer to it, we will see that all of the parts become more and more manifest. And as we do that, as these parts become more and more parsed out, we will lose that original object that we perceive that may have given rise to our attachment. If your original appearance of that shrub being inherently existent and independent was correct, then the closer that you come to it, the clearer and clearer that sort of round appearance and beauty should become. But in fact, this is not the case. The closer and closer we come to it, we realize that the object is not as it appeared at all. And so this is something that makes this concept something that beginners can use, something that beginners can think about. If we sort of reflect on this, we can say, really, there is kind of a reason to this. This is something that is actually true. So in terms of the realization of emptiness, this is something that is quite complex or difficult. But in terms of just using emptiness to be able to get to the point where, okay, the object does not exist in the way that it appears through the lens of my attachment, in the way that it appears through the lens of my anger. This is something that is definitely possible. And if we are able to engage in this reasoning, which is going to directly target that misapprehension of an inherent existence, which is that ignorance, if we are able to address that ignorance and diminish it, then naturally, consequentially, attachment, anger, and so forth will also be diminished.
And
if, based upon cultivating in this way, understanding in this way, we are able to see that all of these afflicted minds, right, all of these unwholesome minds are cheating us, then it will be much easier to diminish and overcome them.
And so Geshe
said, in terms of what we're explaining here, even when we just get a little bit of a mind that is going towards emptiness and dependent arising, then this is something excellent. And so for those beginners who are interested and who have a liking for the teachings on emptiness, how do we sort of first approach this concept and so forth? When we see any object, any phenomena, we can immediately think, based upon the coming together of what causes and conditions is this arising? Based upon what is this arising? And in this way, we can see, at least on the course level, quite easily that that object, that phenomena, it arises dependently upon other things. And if we are able to gain familiarity with this, then an understanding of emptiness will be easier to come by. Emptiness is explaining that there is nothing, no object, no phenomena that is not arising except in dependence upon others. And so, in this way, from developing an understanding, a feeling for the teachings on dependent arising, for example, we can start right now on this journey to a greater happiness. So Geshe is just mentioning Lama Tsongkhapa's praise to Buddha Shakyamuni, the reason why we offer prostration, why we offer respect to the Buddha, and I don't have the verse memorized, but it is basically we offer respect to the one who is able to comprehend dependent arising. And it is said that Lama Tsongkhapa composed this text in praise of dependent arising when, based upon his own study and practice, he had an understanding of dependent origination, an understanding of dependent arising. When that arose, he had so much deeper respect for the Buddha. So then from our side, if as much as possible we engage with these teachings on dependent origination or dependent arising, and we engage with these teachings on emptiness, then there can be no greater accumulation of merits, there can be no greater purification of unwholesome karma than that.
오 노다 강기가 자와도 마리바테 알았어요. 오 마리바를 다 내바테 돈을 다 개방이네 되래.
So because all of our problems are ultimately rooted in our arising in dependence upon that ignorance, if we are able as a practitioner to target ignorance directly, then we are one who is truly skillful.
오 드리지 드네 가비 모닝이네레 송비스토니 가제테도 로주 돈여레 버체로치 스키보치네.
So thank you very much as possible then with a happy and joyful mind seeing the truth, the evidence of these words, please study and practice well.
야 티치.
Thanks very much.